It's my last week here. I know. The 15 months, where have they gone? I was just thinking of my first week, my first Sunday here, doing a comedy fall and the hidden step as I came up, and I've sussed it out now. I know exactly where I'm putting my feet. It's good to be here this morning as we mark the end of a year, as we mark the end of my time here. I wonder if some of us feel a little bit like my children, who, as we drove to church to the Chris Tingle service, said, "Mum, what day is? What day is it?" And I said, "It's Tuesday." "And we're going to church?" "Yes." "And what day is tomorrow?" "It's Wednesday." "And we're going to church?" "Yes." "And do we have to go on Sunday as well?" Yes, we have to go on Sunday as well. But I don't know about you, but for me, some of these services have been oases of beauty in the mayhem of Christmas and the constant spending and eating, to join together, to sing these hymns, to be still and to reflect has been really precious. And I absolutely loved our watch night service that we were able to come to. And at that service, we were thinking about the amazing attention to detail that God had put into the nativity story. Mary didn't just happen to be at the right time, be at the right place at the right time. But every little detail, the list of people before Jesus was born, every bit mattered. And we thought about how that's the same for us. God has every detail of our lives mapped. Nothing is a coincidence. And as it came to this, our service, at the final one for 2019, the attention to detail did not escape me. We've been thinking about the book of James. We put it on pause as we went into Advent. So we now finish off our final chapter of James. We finish our final week of the year. I finish my final service here, and you'll see from your sheets today's title is Finish It. What are the chances? I think that's brilliant. And when I looked at the passage as well, I realised it was also the same passage that I spoke on at Bonnyrigg as sole nominee. I just love when you see these beautiful brushstrokes of the Father weaving all these details. So, our passage is James chapter 5, and we're reading from verse 7 to verse 11. I don't think I told the people that upstairs. They're now frantically typing in verses. I'm so sorry. I'm completely useless. I know. So, we'll read together. I'm sure Peter will sort it out in no time for you. But let's read together. James chapter 5, starting at verse 7. Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, and how patient he is for the autumn and spring rains. You too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against each other, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Be an example of patience in the face of suffering. Take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we consider blessed those who have persevered. You've heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. James feels a long time ago when we looked at that brilliant book with excellent tips on how to live out our faith. I'll give you a recap and refresh your memories. We started off with the title, Face It, thinking about looking in the mirror, really seeing ourselves for who we are and seeing who we are called to be. The next one was Live It, about being really serious about living out Jesus in our everyday lives. We then thought about Tame It, which was not my favourite. as we thought about that really challenging passage about taming our tongues, being mindful to say things that are encouraging, that are filled with love. And remembering Sunday, we thought about lose it. We thought about the challenge to surrender all to God. And today, our final instalment, as you well know now, is finish it. I wonder who among us is good at finishing things. Who just can't get out the kitchen until every last plate's been done, every cup's put in the right place? Or who likes a crossword and just can't settle until every last clue's been fulfilled and the boxes are all completed? There is huge satisfaction in getting a job done, isn't there? I remember this brilliant photo on Facebook, and it was as this woman in a beautiful, sparkling kitchen. It says, "Finally, the kitchen's done." And then she walks into the living room, and it's complete carnage everywhere. Things all over the floor and the sofa. And that's a frustrating thing, isn't it? Sometimes, as soon as we finish one job, the next job's lined up, ready for us. I wonder if you're a little bit like me, who you can get a really good idea and feel really motivated and say, right, I'm going to clear out that cupboard. It's been 4 years since we've cleared that out. This is the day. Then you start pulling out things, and then you find some photo albums. So you go through them, and then you find there's a story about, and then 3 hours later, the place is covered in bags and papers. You've got to go get the kids, and you're thinking, right, bag it all up, back in the cupboard. It's hard going. It's frustrating when we never finish a job. A regular problem in our house is when Richard goes out of an evening, I get control of the remote. So all those movies he refuses to watch, yes. So I'll take 20 minutes at least looking through Netflix, which just goes on. It's the most boring task in the world. There must be a good movie out here somewhere, flicking through. And then you find one, yes, I'm going to watch this. And then, 15 minutes before the end of the film, I hear the key in the door. Noise, home. Then he comes in wanting to chat. I don't want to chat. I want to watch the rest of my movie. Darn it. So it's always a bit tense when I continually, will you just be quiet? Just let me watch the end of this. And I have to say, this happened to us the other day when he was watching something with Ryan, and I came in full of chat, and he was like, get out, get in the kitchen, leave us boys alone. We want to finish what we've started, don't we? It's good. There's a sense of completion when we've finished the job. And so, at the end of 2019, as we finish our study on James, we think about finishing it. I'd like for us to focus on 2 of the verses that we read in our passage. Verse 8, which says, "Be patient and stand firm." And then verse 11, "We count it blessed those who persevere." So first, be patient and stand firm. I wonder who among us would describe ourselves as patient. I wonder what things send you over the edge. There's been quite a number of things over the Christmas period that have been challenges to our patience. I went Christmas shopping with Christina on the 23rd. I still didn't have my turkey, still had loads of stuff to buy. I was beginning to feel a little bit anxious. Went to Cameron Toll on the 23rd, and it was, as you can imagine, complete chaos. The shops themselves were not horrendous. The car park. We drove in, and I could see it was going to be a nightmare. There was just tons of cars everywhere. And we drove up, and then I spotted on the left a beauty wee space. I've just got a dinky car, none of these big things. So I thought, I'm totally going to squeeze in that. So quick, before anybody else, I got in. Only as I was halfway in, I realised this is not going to work. So I was like, okay, I'm halfway in, I'm kind of committed, but I'm really not going to squeeze into this space. So I was like, I'm just going to have to get out again. So I then tried to squeeze my way out. It was completely horrendous. Of course, by this point, there's a backup of traffic. Oh, I mean, there's nothing worse. Everyone's just sitting watching and you're cringing. And then I'm trying to wriggle out. And then on the other side, there's a whole backload of traffic all waiting. Christina, bless her, squeezed down in her chair and says, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm not you, Mum." I was like, yeah, I wish I wasn't me right now. And everyone's looking at me, I'm smiling, sorry, oh, sorry. They're all scowling, desperate to get their turkey and stuffing and all the rest of it. Things can really push our patience. It might be when you're in the car, it might be when you're at the shops, trying to use the self-scanning thing. You think it's going to save time. After about 3 items, you're having a fit. There's unexpected items on the thing. You're going mad. Or it might be that you've just spent a little bit too much time with your family. Your siblings are annoying you. Your children are constantly bickering. The grandchildren have volumes unknown to mankind. Our patience can get so pushed at this time of year. However, we know that James isn't writing to the church who are exhausted after the pressures of Christmas. He's writing to a church that is desperate for support. They're a brand new church trying to figure out how to live out their faith in society. They're struggling and they're under persecution. They are needing the support of James's letter. They're hanging on his every word. And I love the advice that James gives to the church. He says, look at nature. Look at the farmer. See how patient he is. He can't make his crops grow any faster. He can't make the autumn rains come any quicker. He simply has to let nature take its course. What a brilliant example for us today. At university, one of our modules just briefly covered the Industrial Revolution. And what I thought was so interesting was not that people worked harder because of the Industrial Revolution. They were used to working hard. They were working on the farms. They were definitely hard workers. But their change of pace had changed. No longer did the sunrise and the sunset dictate their working hours, but rather it was the clock in the centre ringing out its bell. Let's go, let's get to work. Nature had been taken over by humanity's pushing desire to progress. James tells us to be patient. And there are many, many examples throughout the New Testament and Old where we are told to be patient. It's one of the fruits in Galatians. It's one of the first things in that famous 1 Corinthians 13 love statement. Love is patient. Patience is so important. And this was a much needed message for the church, for whom following Jesus was so challenging. Here at St John's in Kings Park, we've been taking donations. You'll have heard at every service that you've been at. You'll have heard about the charities that we have been supporting over the festive period. And one really important one close to my heart is Open Doors. Open Doors supports the persecuted church. For those believers in North Korea, in Somalia, in Syria, for those churches who, like the church that James is writing to, suffer under the weight of persecution. James's words to be patient and stand firm would have been like gold that they would cling to. It would be like oil soothing them. They would be meditating on these words, holding on to these words. For us who are not in the persecuted country, we have batteries around. This one? This one. Do you know, I've worked so hard at battling away from this lectern, and isn't there something bookendish about having having torn myself away from the lectern, I'm brought back to where I started. There's something quite nice about that. There we go. I'll not even attempt to take this mic off, which I always fight with. Where was I? Were you listening? Are you out there? Persecution, that's right. So, we don't live in a persecuted church in this country. What do these verses have to say to us? Hold on, let me find my way. I'm all over the place. And actually, I think the challenge to us is not to be patient, but to be a little bit more impatient. For the church, I wonder if James was writing to us, he'd say, be impatient about your persecuted brothers and sisters around the world. Be impatient about the injustice that you see in society. Be impatient about inequality. I think there is something for us there. But James doesn't just tell us to be patient, he tells us to stand firm. And here's words we can really tune our ears to. Stand firm when the storms of life batter you, when fear and doubt surround you, when the pressures and the demands of life are trying to drag you down. Stand firm. When society tells you again and again, there's no room for faith in a modern world, stand firm. The people that James were writing to were sure that Jesus' return was imminent. Every day they got up thinking, today might be the day that Jesus comes. There was that sense of expectation. Wouldn't it be brilliant if the church in Scotland had that kind of expectation? Jesus is coming, we need to get ready. Wouldn't that be something? And so to verse 11. We are to count it blessed, those who have persevered. We have a motto in our house, the Purdons never give up. Whenever we're challenged by something, whenever we're finding something really difficult, we'll say, what's the motto? Never give up. Right, let's get on with it. Doesn't matter how tough things are, perseverance is so important. And just as James gave a brilliant example of nature for us to look at as an example in patience, he also gives a really good example for us to consider in perseverance. And it's in the character of Job. Job was known as a good and a prosperous family man. However, after a conversation between Satan and God, Job had to endure horrendous disasters. Everything that he held dear was taken away from him. His health, his family, his property. And the book is a brilliant book of his struggles and wrestling through this situation as he asks questions. Job was challenged on every level, and James cites him as an example of perseverance. I looked up the definition of perseverance and I really loved it. It said, continue in a course of action, even in the face of difficulty, or with little or no indication of success. Continue in a course of action, even in the face of difficulty, or with little or no indication of success. Isn't that brilliant? Keep on keeping on. As I read that definition, I thought we need to be really careful here though. Wisdom has to be involved too. I was instantly reminded of Einstein's definition of stupidity, which is to repeatedly do the same thing but expect a different result. This isn't just about ploughing through regardless. We're called to persevere, but not if it's hurting us or if it's hurting others. We persevere for truth, for hope, and for justice. Many of you know my journey with driving, and I remember there would be some lessons. I would come home from a driving lesson, throw myself on the sofa and say, I just can't do it. And then next week, I'd go out again, get in the car, here we go. Every week, persevering through. There's times when I'd be driving and I'd look over at my instructor beside me, and his head would be in his hands. I'm like, well, that's not very encouraging. And then you'd hear him just go, as I was, why did you do that? He used to say, I don't know, I just did. Oh, it was so hard going, and I thought I would never make it. But I knew I just had to keep going. And then I changed driving instructors. And Kieran arrived in my life like a breath of fresh air. First lesson, he says, you can do this, you can drive, I'll have you passed by summer. And do you know what? He was right. And I did pass by the end of the summer. And it got me thinking that perseverance also includes who we surround ourselves with. When you look in the book of Job, if you get a chance to read it, his friends were completely useless. They brought more misery to the situation than anything else. Who we hang out with is really important. Consider your friendship circle. Consider the people you spend time with. Make sure they're people who are saying, you can do this. Make sure it's people who are cheering you on. James says, blessed are those who persevere. And I can certainly think of people who have persevered, which have been a blessing in my life. Those suffragettes who protested and sacrificed so much for me to be able to vote. Mary Leveson and those who stood with her, petitioning the General Assembly in 1963 for the ordination of women. Me and my peers are blessed because of them. And you too, you will be blessed because of the perseverance of others. Those who have pioneered new territory, invented new things, broken down walls and ceilings. And so the call comes to each one of us this morning to persevere. What are you called to persevere in? Is it to persevere with kindness to the grumpy neighbour who never says hello and always scowls at you? Is it at work? At the mums and toddler group you go to? Is it in prayer? Have you secretly, quietly given up? As we think about our challenge from James to be patient, we also hear the challenge to persevere. And our title today, while it fits in perfectly with the end of the year and the end of me being probationer, it doesn't seem to fit in with the theme of discipleship, because discipleship never ends. We don't ever clock off. We are always growing. We are always continuing to strive to be more like Jesus. This is a constant process that we're never finished with. I remember how frustrating I found that when I was a youth worker. I never felt satisfied at the end of a day because there was so much more that could have been done. Yes, we would run clubs with 10 kids at lunchtime to provide a safe place for those that the playground was intimidating for. But there was another 20 kids who didn't come, who were vulnerable. Chatting to young women, going through all kinds of issues, but then sending them home to the chaos of their family felt so frustrating. It's not easy living with unfinished business. Being a disciple is continuous, step by step. But I think it does have something to say to us. I think we're being called to see it through, to never give up, to persevere, even when life is hard. Allow God to finish what he started in you. As we draw to the close of a year, I've reflected that last year's New Year's resolutions are still on the list. I didn't lose any weight, I didn't get any fitter, all back on the list for 2020. We live with this incompletion, and yet we patiently persevere. I remember seeing a brilliant piece of graffiti in Edinburgh. It says, "Rome wasn't built in a day, but bits of it were." We go through, bit by bit, making changes. As I thought of today's topic, there was an image that I just couldn't get out of my head. And it was an image of Edinburgh's disgrace. I think we've got it on the screen. There it is. I remember hearing the story when we moved from Glasgow to Edinburgh, of how Edinburgh wanted to match the European cities and become the Athens of the North. They commissioned the project to build this spectacular monument that would be the envy of all. Only what was due to be called the National Monument is commonly known as Edinburgh's disgrace. Money ran out. They didn't know what to do, and so nothing got done. I was reading and thought it was interesting. Glasgow even offered to fund the project to finish it, but insisted that they have the Glasgow coat of arms on it. You can imagine how that went down in Edinburgh. We'd rather have a half-finished monument than Glasgow coat of arms on it. Ridiculous. So while we know it as Edinburgh's disgrace, it's also got another name that it's known as, which is pride and poverty. Isn't that interesting? Pride and poverty. That's not an emblem that I want to have representing the city. Too proud to take help, too poor to get the job done. As I reflected on Edinburgh's National Monument, my mind went to another building in Barcelona, the Basilica Sagrada Familia, pronounced like a true Catalonian. This was an equally challenging building project, relying on the donations of others. Building started 50 years after the one in Edinburgh. Today, it remains unfinished, but it has a finish date, which is generations have seen its development. Hundreds of folk throughout all the generations putting their workmanship into this building, and its finish date is in hopefully 6 years' time. Now there's a building to be getting the job done, taking the time, not being too proud to get the help of others. What beautiful church that is. And so, for us, as we go into this new year, let's not be too proud to take the help of others. Let's not be too proud to let God finish what he started in us. Let us press through and trust that what God started, he will complete. Let us pray.